Kia ora everyone and welcome along to Humankind. This video is targeted at those of you out there who want to be familiar with Humankind, the game, not the species, before its release on 17 August, or if you'd just like to join me for a discussion. Let's crack straight into it. So, as I say, Humankind is a game developed by Amplitude Studios, the creators of Endless Legend and Endless Space, and other reasonably good strategy game titles that have came out of the studio over the last 4 or 5 years. It's published by Sega, and it will be available on Windows, macOS, and also Google Stadia, which is kind of fun. Anyway, let's talk about what it actually does. So, Humankind, as you can see, is a 4X strategy game, comparable undoubtedly to the Civilization franchise, but also some elements of other similar games as well, the likes of Old World, for example. In Humankind, as a player, you will lead your civilization, or your empire, so to speak, across 6 major in-game eras, starting in the nomadic age, where you will spawn literally as a group of roaming people, roaming around the map with no settlement. You'll establish an outpost, turn it into a city, you may establish other outposts, or engage immediately in combat. You can go out hunting for food and get more population that way. It's a very interesting opening dynamic to the game, in that you're not tied to a city like Civilization. A really distinguishing feature for Humankind is that within each era, you choose a culture, one of 10 cultures. Okay, so when you roll into the ancient era, for example, you're provided with an option of 10 cultures, including things like Assyria and the Egyptians. You'll recognize a lot of these. Phoenicians, which is Carthage, so on and so forth. You choose a culture, and that culture will have a unique building, a unique unit, and also a special trait associated to them. It may be additional science gain, it may be more money, you might be stronger at warfare. There are lots of elements to it. Once you reach the end of that era, you're then faced with another decision. As you move into the next era, you're fronted with, again, 10 more cultures to choose from. You can keep your existing culture and play through it the whole game if you want to, or you can change at each era. As you move through the eras, you'll notice that the cultures reflect real-world civilization. For example, as you move towards the industrial era, you'll be able to choose from industrial powerhouses of the modern world. Think industrialized Britain, for example, America, Japan, so on and so forth. These very familiar, historically accurate cultures are available throughout the game, and unlike in other 4X strategy titles, in Humankind you can swap and move between them. The idea being that it replicates the real world, right? We haven't seen a single culture be born in the nomadic ages very early on when we barely had fire, right the way through to the modern era, right? That just hasn't happened. Even if you think it's some of the most significant and noteworthy cultures in human history, like the Roman Empire, and even if you stretch that out and say that Frederick Barbarossa was a Holy Roman Emperor, you're still penned within roughly 1500 years, right? Which is a really long time, but not all of Humankind. So it makes sense that as you move through this game, you can change and adjust your culture as you go. I really think that's a wonderful thing that Humankind has implemented, and we'll see how it plays out. I have a separate video that I'm working on with some issues that I can see, some cracks I can see forming, but by and large, a very strong feature of this game. Now, like all other strategy games, you collect and connect your cities and collect more cities and collect more land, but also, of course, very familiar yields, right? So your cities will produce knowledge and science, and that will help you research new technologies. You'll earn what's called influence, which will allow you to, as the name would suggest, influence the laws, cultures, and civics of your society to change and shape the behaviors of people. Now, there are other more traditional yields as well: food, money, industry, which is your production, so on and so forth, and you earn these on tiles in cities through combat and thanks to your unique civilization or culture's abilities. During a game of Humankind, you will gain resources for your civ, just in the same way that you do in Civilization on the map as well, building improvements to harvest resources, trading them with other players. There's a reasonable level of trade and diplomacy within the game as well, at least a few more options than just the linear open or closed borders, swap me this luxury, swap me that luxury. There's more of a concrete system in this game, and there's layering of diplomatic features that's really open and transparent right at the beginning. So you can see, for starters, there are no limits. You can just fight anybody, you don't need to declare war, it's full on, you can just skirmish with people. Brilliant. But then as you move through, you can tighten your borders, you can allow open borders, you can allow trade and movement of people. It's a very good system, and it's sort of staggered and layered to provide more depth to the diplomacy, okay? And I think that's quite a good thing. Humankind introduces and includes one big significant change, and that is fame. Now, I have provided a separate sort of guide video on fame and how fame works, how you earn it, but what you need to know is all of your actions throughout the game, whether you're researching a lot of technologies, or say, enacting a lot of civics, perhaps you're slaying a lot of military units, regardless of whether these are military actions or political actions, technological actions, they all will eventually, once you reach certain milestones anyway, produce fame. And fame is the currency for victory in Humankind. And it makes sense, because history, so far, has not been something that's just been won, right? You didn't just go to space and then win. You didn't just start selling your blue jeans and then win, okay? That's not how it works, right? It shifts and changes with time. The idea behind the fame system is not only to ensure that there's not just a winner, a wow, you made it to space winner, but actually more than that. The fame system is about acknowledging that you don't just have to beeline to get to space to win a game, and that a culture, or indeed a civilization, humankind's achievements, are more wide-reaching than that. The fame system captures achievements from across the game and combines them into one currency, fame. And then that currency, fame, allows you to compare. In many ways, we could reflect on fame as being the same as a score victory in other games, but that is not true. There are many more layers to the fame system that make it much more intricate and much more realistic in acknowledging the achievements of an empire. Like I say, I have a full video on fame if you want to hear more about it. In terms of the development cycle, Humankind was originally teased 2 years ago in 2019. We've seen some open dev phases and other opportunities for people to play the game in late 2020 and early 2021. It's been delayed. Initially, it was planned to release in April 2021. It was pushed to August. And as far as we know now, just weeks, if not days away from release, that isn't going to change. Humankind releases on the 17th of August 2021. It's single player and multiplayer. It will have modding support. And it releases, of course, on Steam, Epic, and Google Stadia. Thanks very much for watching this introduction to Humankind. If you want more, please do check out the channel and feel free to stick around. Until next time, take care.